welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us, new and returning alike. Um, Welcome to June Smart Talks. My name's Derek. I'm a new face. You may have seen me in the newsletter. I'm the marketing and sales admin now. We'll kind of dig a little bit more into that when we get to the news. I hope everybody's enjoying their summer, and I hope you're looking forward to hearing from Bonnie today. So like I said, welcome. Just a reminder, these are your meetings. We put these on for you guys. We want to know what you think. We want to know what you want to hear about. If you have any ideas for, topics or specific, help that you need on certain things for Scissortail or Acumatica, let us know. We'll reach out. We'll put something together. Um, at the end of today's presentation, we have a short survey that we hope you'll complete. We give out one of these really sick CS3 technology Yetis to the winner to a drawing winner, excuse me, every month. So fill out that survey. They're really cool Yetis. I'm actually pretty jealous. Last month's winner was Jen Holler from Profilament, excuse me, Interiors. Jen, if you're here, I hope you are enjoying that Yeti. And uh, follow us on social media, uh, LinkedIn and YouTube. We always have activities, speaking engagements. We're posting blogs, tips, videos, things like that all the time. So, yeah, give us a follow, and hopefully you learn something. So you may have noticed we're doing the webinar in Teams this month. That's kind of a new thing for us. Bear with us. There might be some technology blunders. We practiced a bunch, but sometimes things happen. So if you guys have questions, there's the Q&A section up at the top ribbon. You can click in there, ask your questions. We'll be monitoring it, and we've set aside some time for Q&A at the end of the presentation. A lot of people ask for the slide deck or for the video. That's going to be sent to everybody who registered. So don't worry if you miss something, or if you get distracted, just hang tight. We'll make sure to get you the slide deck and the presentation itself at the end of the session. So our CEO, Gary Crouch, wrote a book where he kind of dives into our 18 service pillars, which are the foundation of how we do business at CS3. Every interaction we have, every meeting, everything's kind of built on these 18 pillars. So Gary likes to recognize an employee each month that exemplifies that month's pillar. And this month is be authentic. So in Gary's book, he says authentic behavior is the most powerful quality we have as consultants. Authenticity is about undisputed credibility when you articulate what you're experiencing. In other words, express the emotions you feel without being emotional. And the CS3 employee that we think exemplifies authenticity the most is Brandy Clymer. Brandy has the opportunity in her ongoing support of clients and also with employees to face some difficult conversations. She's always very pleasant, communicates clearly without frustration. She's always honest. She is truly, the embodiment of authenticity. So thank you, Brandy, and congrats on being this month's example. So the news. I'm the news. Like I said at the top, my name's Derek. I'm the new marketing and sales admin. I'll be taking over on SmartTalks, obviously. You also may have seen my fingerprints on the newsletter. If you get those earlier in the month, I'll be on social media, helping with marketing strategy. I'm a very easygoing guy. I have a lot of experience in, software marketing, software as a service, that kind of stuff. I recently started playing golf. That's really not going so well. I'm a big basketball guy. I love hoops. I'm a Mavs fan. That also did not go very well. So it's been a rough couple of weeks for me personally. but I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be hosting my first Smart Talks, and hopefully you guys enjoy my presence. Moving on, this is also something you may have seen in the newsletter, but we wanted to kind of cover it here as well. In the last 12 months, 66% of small to mid-sized businesses have faced a cyber attack. We wanted to just put together a list of quick tips you guys can kind of practice in your personal and professional lives to, help make sure your information is safe. So obviously longer alphanumeric passwords that use special characters are a lot more secure. I love an exclamation point or a star in my passwords. I try to use a lot of numbers. I try to move where the numbers are. Never reuse passwords for different sites. If one site gets hacked or your account becomes compromised, every account that uses those credentials is also compromised. So it's always better to kind of spread your passwords out, use different ones for each individual app or website or whatever it is. And in that same vein, password managers like LastPass or Bitwarden can really help with that. They generate incredibly long alphanumeric passwords. They save your passwords. You can share them in LastPass. That's something we use here a ton, and it's really helpful. Um, you don't have to remember your passwords. It's just a much easier way. Plus, they'll alert you if there's a breach. Uh, they'll let you know. You can change your information or you can update your credentials, keep your information safe. And then the last thing, multi-factor authentication. It just adds an extra level of security, whether it's a code sent to your email, your cell phone, or an authenticator app, or even biometric verification these days, especially with iPhones. It makes everything a little bit more secure. So definitely, if you're not doing these things, I would strongly recommend you change that. And also, if you have questions about cybersecurity best practices or you're looking for more tips or information, feel free to reach out to your consultant. They are experts in this kind of stuff, so they'll have plenty of info for you. Next thing is wiki communication in Acumatica. It's a tool that's included with the Acumatica ERP. It allows you to build a library of articles for use in training or dashboard communications. There's full HTML that allows you to format and include links, providing uh, a common location for critical information. The example we have here, it shows what a procedure for customer management might look like. So it is a default functionality within Acumatica. If you're not using it and you are curious about it, or you want maybe some help with how to get it set up, just reach out to your consultant, or you could put in a service ticket. Either one will get you guys going on that. But it is a very helpful tool, and it's always nice to have everything in one easy to find place. For Scissortail, performance reviews. Everybody either loves or hates performance reviews, I guess, depending on how good you are at your job. But they're just a way to provide routine feedback to each employee. Within Scissortail, they are automated, so it helps increase satisfaction, productivity. You can include various levels of managerial input as well as peer comments. Plus, compensation can be tied to reviews or handled separately. So, if you're looking for a way to kind of better communicate, areas of improvement or just letting people know they're doing a great job, performance reviews inside of Scissortail is a great way to do that. Okay, so for our CS3 clients, our consulting team has developed a huge library of tips and tutorial videos, and there's a few different ways you can access those. The first of which is going to be just the site-wide search feature that'll retrieve blogs, white papers, things like that based on your keywords. You can also go under the resources tab. There's the CS3 technology videos. Um, or if you're already in the client service center, it's going to look like this. You can click technology down there in that bottom ribbon, and then that will take you to the technology video library. So once you're here, we highlight the latest submissions and have a full search engine that helps you find whatever you're looking for, any topic of interest. Most of these videos are going to be between 3 and 6 minutes. We try to keep it relatively short, but we also want it to be informational. Past lunch and learns, monthly SmartTalks, and demos can also be found in the technology video library. So our consulting team contributes to this very regularly, and I make sure to ask them to do that. They are experts. I know I've said that a bunch of times about a bunch of different things, but it truly is impressive how smart all of our consultants are, and they work really hard on these videos. So knowledge transfer is one of those pillars, one of the 18 pillars. It's a really important one around here, as I've learned in my onboarding process. So we want to make sure that you guys have what you need to be successful. Okay, so getting into the topic today, most of you have had the pleasure, I'm sure, of working with Bonnie. She is in the office right across the hall from me. She's a wonderful person. She's so nice. She is a Scissortail specialist, but she also does triage for Acumatica. And also she's going to have Robin with her, kind of being her sidekick, helping her out a little bit. So Bonnie's been with CS3 for 3.5 years now. She's one of the few people that still works in the Tulsa office. Like I said, she's right on the other side of that door from me. She implements HR and supports all Scissortail products. She has 2 sons and a daughter, plus 6 grandchildren, and a Chihuahua rescue named Buddy. She brings Buddy to the office every Wednesday. He is not my friend yet, but we're going to keep working on it. He seems like a sweet little guy, and I just want to pet him one time. But with that all being said, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Bonnie. So there you go.
Well, thank you all for joining us today. I appreciate you taking some time out of your day. And Scissortail digital onboarding process streamlines the new hire experience, saving time for recruiters and HR staff. Employees can easily track their progress and digitally sign documents, which put value on the new hire's time. And you know what they say about first impressions. Today, I'm going to take a different approach. We are going to look at onboarding as an admin that creates and maintains the HR action workflows, etc. But before all that excitement, let's go over some basic information. Before onboarding can begin, a new hire must be hired, and the employee record is created, and the action of creating a new hire automatically assigns the onboarding checklist. The onboarding checklist can also be assigned manually. Like for rehires, it needs to be assigned manually to there. An onboarding checklist is one of the most customizable modules in Scissortail for personal information review, digital handbooks, policies, stored and downloadable, to signing acknowledgement and government forms. If you are still using paper onboarding, digitizing onboarding will max up the new hire experience and can be done anytime, anywhere.
So Bonnie, let me ask you, why is it required to create the employee record?
Well, in Scissortail, onboarding is considered the employee's first day tasks. It requires documentation with a little orientation thrown in. And an employee record is required for all modules in Scissortail, no matter if you have a standalone module like TLM or payroll. The employee record is the beating heart of Scissortail, and various profiles, cost centers, jobs, widgets branch out and carry data through the digital veins that drive all manners of employee processes. Some employee settings are used for one or multiple purposes. An example is a simple profile widget. Is in the simple profile widget. If the employee does not have the correct module profile for accruals, let's say, the paid time off will not be calculated properly. And cost centers like location and department can determine what state payroll taxes should be withheld. And for onboarding, will not allow the correct state withholding form be available to new hires.
Okay, that's good information. I like how you illustrated it with the beating heart. That makes a lot of sense.
So as you know, Robin, the pre-boarding and onboarding are often mistaken as the same thing, but they differ by who is responsible for completing tasks. Pre-boarding is mostly internal, and onboarding checklist is completed by the new employee. Once completed, HR finishes with a few processes and completes the new hire setup. So if you think of it this way, we have a recruiting module, and then the recruiting module, applicants apply, there's the application process, interviews, whatnot, offer letters are sent out, accepted, and then it moves into the pre-boarding. That's the pre-employment checks, and if the employee passes, determines the next step. But if they fail, they are informed that they did not pass the pre-check, but if they pass, the next step is to initiate a new hire HR action, and the internal setup of new hire begins. And once that is done, onboarding is taken over. The new hire completes the required documentation and various system setups like direct deposit or signing up for their W-2 electronically. Employees review personal information. There's the I-9 verification of identifying and right to work in the U.S. Sometimes the I-9 documents required are verified during the pre-boarding process to avoid creating unwanted employee records. They also filled out their withholding, and kind of employee orientation is what I like to call it, where they're introduced to the company policies and acknowledgments are signed, and internal notifications are sent out to various departments that they are ready to start work. With Scissortail, all can be achieved without a single paper document. So if you look at the screen, which one would you rather be? So,
I've been the guy on the left.
So why not max up your recruiting and onboarding process without paper? Paper onboarding and personnel files. An HR admin is burdened with all the scheduling, verifying, filling in all the various forms, and quite labor intensive and time consuming for both the new hire and HR. How many times have you gone to a paper filing system, sorted through a mountain of documents, only to find the document missing, misfiled, or lost? Paper files are forgotten about until something is needed to be looked up, and that can take an entire day depending on how your files are stored. I have yet to meet a single coworker that enjoys filing or researching information stored in paper files.
Nope.
Scissortail Digital Personnel File System works for the HR staff and the employee. The government forms are also working digital documents within Scissortail. Once signed, submitted, and the employee's W-4 is processed by a system admin, and it's automatically updates their withholding choices on payroll. And the same token, the I-9 employees fill out their part, and as you know, there's many steps to this. Then the HR fills out their part and verifies the appropriate identification, signs off on it, and then either logs into the portal, the government portal, where they input the information and wait on the verification. But there's also a add-in called E-Verify and in Scissortail, and it processes the information digitally, and it also gives you statuses of the process, and it also is lets you know that that employee document I-9 is truly secure and is audit ready.
Oh, hang on. Let me stop you there, Bonnie. Like Derek had said originally in the beginning of the presentation, talking about cyber attacks. Is there a way to apply security to employee documents?
Yes, security for documents
Okay.
it has 3 different levels of security. By what type of document, where it is stored, and who can view and or download the document. Furthermore, anyone who has security to view employee sensitive information also requires stricter login rules. Security is a priority with documents viewed, uploaded, stored, and downloaded.
Perfect. That's good information.
And there are 3 widgets on the employee record that to find the documents. And this example, it's all forms, and all forms under the HR tab is where all the system internal documents reside. So you can see here withholding certificate. One of them is for state, one of them is for federal. Their I-9 document is held here and stored here, as well as any acknowledgments they sign. And my examples are probably not the best, but this is from my demo company. So I'm sure your live company will look much different. And there's also another section called employee documents. This area is where it's all of the images of documents that are uploaded and stored. So if you think of it this way, employee documents is something that comes from outside the system, scanned and uploaded. And then we have the very last, which is a digital credentials. And for digital credentials, this is when an employee types in the information that's on one of those IDs, and and it's usually a credential that has an expiration date.
Okay, well, why are the credentials entered manually? Aren't the images saved the same thing, or are they different?
Yeah, they're the same. The
Okay.
uploaded images are credentials and are important for auditing purposes, but they can't be tracked. This allows the manually entered credentials like food handlers and driver's license, OSHA certificates, nurse licenses, and the like to be tracked. And when we track the credentials, they have a customized setting, and the fields, we can pretty much put any kind of fields that is required for information on that particular credential. Now, in the onboarding checklist, we can have the employee fill them in, or you can the HR person can do that after they get the digital copies. Most people who use this do let the employees set them up. Now, like I said, we can track it. We can track it through a report, but we also have automated notifications that can go out to warn the employee and HR that we can set a time frame, and let's say 30 days before the expiration date, they get a notification to remind them to renew. And that gives the employee plenty of time to get that renewal and that new copy to the HR and to upload their new expiration date into Scissortail.
Oh, that is really good to know, because I know I've had to go chase down people before in the past. Oh, it's just the worst. That's awesome.
Now, there is another type of security, and it's groups. And, I'm using a lot of verbiage or language, what I call my scissortail words, and groups are one of my scissortail words. And it's a form of security. There are members and there are managers. We are going to focus on members, and they can have one or more members. When used in a workflow, they are used to assign actions like review, approve, modify, or reject. They can also be used to notify members of statuses of an HR action, like the employee has completed their onboarding checklist. When a group is created, it can be auto-maintained, created with filters. Now there's two group types. There's the filtered kind and the manual kind. My preference is the filtered kind because there's hardly any work that has to be done with that. But the filter groups cannot be modified. The filter used must be modified on the employee record to edit the group. And for example, a filter group is created to include an employee who have admin security profile. This will include all employees with that security profile. If an employee security profiles change, they will be automatically removed from the group. And there's several different filters available. We can use the job, we can use the cost center, and we can even use the EIN if it's a multi-company system. To assign managers on an employee record, there is a filter base, and it creates their group automatically once assigned to an employee record. Now, this can take quite a few minutes to show up, so keep refreshing until that group is created, and then you can go on to make changes to your workflow. The manual group is a list of members that can be modified and must be maintained. Now, like that, for example, if the group calls for only a few members that have the security profile of admin, then we would create a manual group and add the members manually. Now, the security group for that way must be maintained. So it's still a very efficient way to use it. And the only thing you have to remember is someone leaves, you just have to replace that group member. So group security, I like to think of it this way. Group security is for whose employee record is viewable, and the security profile is what can be viewed and or edited. So it's the who and the what. When used in a workflow, the action shows up in all group members' to-do box, and who acts first removes the to-do from the rest of the members' inbox. And the workflow and and on the workflow, it documents who took action. Generating a notification is different. When it goes out to a group, if one person reads it, it's still there available for the rest of the group until they mark it as read, and it disappears.
So Bonnie, how can you tell if an employee is a member of a group?
Oh, that's such a good question. That is my next slide. So when looking up what group of employee is a member of is going to the employee record and going on to the main tab, and almost down to the bottom of the screen is the group widget. And on the group widget, it also has the ability to jump to all the viewable groups available. And also you can click on the ellipse and it will jump you to the edit group members. So you can see really quickly who else is a part of the group, and group permissions.
Okay, well, that's good to know. Can you give us an example of a filtered group?
Oh, sure. Let me see. Yeah, so for a filter group like hiring manager, Tom Hardy is Jennifer Aniston's hiring manager. So she is automatically added to his group, and Tom can see her profile and his team members widget. Also, with that, I wanted to mention that when we do set up the different managers, they are given permissions at that point as well. So he may also be able to approve her time cards.
Okay. Well, can groups and workflows be used more than one time?
Oh, yes, that is the beauty of creating the groups. And they can be used multiple times in multiple ways. This group can be used to improve, this group can be used to approve, reject, and submit direct deposit change requests, and also be used in a timesheet approval workflow. When creating groups for workflows and notifications, plan what groups you want to create as part of your onboarding checklist. Preparation and maxing up the potential of a group can be used multiple times. Why one group to maintain? If a member needs to be removed or added, it's only done once. The thing I want you to take away from the groups is that the group is the who. Who can the employee see on the, who can the employee's record can the person see? And or workflows that they can approve and reject, or get notified about the actions. The security profile is what is viewed and or edited.
Okay. I really like how you've explained on the groups equals who and the security profile equals what. That clears that up a lot.
Yeah, that's when Brandy told me about it. It really did make it a lot easier to understand.
Mhm.
And next, we're going to go over workflows and how we use groups to will become a little clearer. So let's get started on workflows. So Scissortail workflows are used throughout the modules, and there are several kinds of workflows. And we're going to talk about the HR action workflows. Workflow is a series of steps and actions that move data around the system to do various tasks. Now, the workflow comes first, and planning how onboarding checklists and HR actions are approved, rejected, or modified.
Okay, well, why does the workflow come first and not the checklist?
Oh yeah, yeah. So you would think that maybe the group would come first, but the group can be created later and changed, as well as the checklist.
Oh,
An HR action cannot be created without a workflow to add. So that's why the workflow has to be thought through, and it can be changed, but I like to have it ready. Changing the workflow in HR actions can cause potential problems, but especially once it goes live. So you really want to have that fine-tuned before you go live. Now, the workflows for onboarding is the HR action prompting action from the initiator based on the action available, moves the HR action through Scissortail until it meets the criteria to end. And the workflows move very fast as the action is taken, and it's just a matter of seconds.
wow. Okay, that's really fast.
Now, thinking about and designing workflows aren't everyone's cup of tea. Mine, yes, but
Yes,
I know
yours.
it's not for everyone. But
Name's on
again,
you.
Scissortail makes our lives easier by having the best practices workflows available to choose and configure. Let's take a look. Now, there is creating a workflow, there are an onboarding checklist, common HR actions. Examples that the workflows that we need are for a new hire information review. direct deposit setup, and multi-signature custom forms. Let's take an example of the new hire information review. Now, creating an HR action workflow from a default best practice, they have this little template and it pops up, and the first thing we have to determine is what we are using it for. So we're using it to hire someone. So we choose hire. Then the next steps, we want 2 approval levels. So let's have the HR approvers approve first as level 1, and then the hiring manager to approve or reject as second. And the to be completed chain is that we're saying we want to use groups. So here is where the actual groups come in. The first approver, I'm making the HR manager an approvers group. And the second approver, I chose Tom Hardy's hiring manager group. So I had a question, but I don't remember.
Oh, I have a question.
Okay.
What are the max levels of approvals available? I'm a simple girl. I prefer to keep it low, but I know some folks like to get elaborate.
Yeah, well, the max level of approvals is 10. You can have up to 10 people approving a workflow in actions. And I know that's a lot, but an HR action only allows for a total of 15 steps. Now, I've created some with 15 steps, and I've seen some others that use 14 steps, and the 15th step is to start another HR action so they can have some more steps. So, I know. When I work on those, it takes a lot of pre-planning and a lot of concentration.
I can imagine.
So this is the example that of what it created based on our choices. Now, when I first, you can move the boxes any way you want. This is my preferred method. I like to have the best case scenario go straight across the top. So level 1 approves, level 2 approves, generates the notification, then it ends. So I like that, the employee fills out their part and it ends. Now, I have just changed the slide this morning because last night release 93 went out, and in release 93, bless their hearts, and I love them so much that they did this, that when you hover over, like I have my mouse hovering over on modified on the employee approve reject, or the request and here they call it the request creator, because it doesn't have to be the employee. I know it's an employee doing it, so that's why I say employee. So I hover over modified, and there's a warning that this creates a loop. But having the warning is great because we need to make sure we have an end to the loop. And it also, if you notice that where it goes is back to level 1, and level 1 now has a much thicker box around it. There's also, it's hard to see in this example, and I apologize, but also there's connecting lines. The connecting line also gets thicker when you hover it over. So, and this box can be expanded. It doesn't have to be this small and compact. There's plenty of room. You can really move these boxes far apart. So what happens if level 1, level 2, or the employee rejects? Well, loops happen, and loops are tricky. And like I said, they must have an exit. So I'm going to give you an example of how it does loop and why we need an exit. So here is my workflow. Now let's remove some of this so we can just concentrate on the steps that we're going to use. So here's the first approval, and then here's the employee. So I'm going to use a pen now, and I'm going to show you how the loops work. So let's say it's created, goes to first approval. The first approver does not like something, and they hit reject. The next thing they have to do is collect a note and tell the employee what they need to fix. Then it goes back to the employee. But if the employee rejects, in this scenario, it ends, which is a no bueno. We don't want that to happen. So normally I take the reject out at this point. I only allow the employee to modify and make the changes they need to make. If it ends, then the checklist never finishes. So it never shows 100% complete, and I can't restart the HR action. It's a one-way street. Workflows are one-way streets. So that's that example. So let's add another level. Okay, so we have the first approver rejects. Let's just start here. The first approver rejects, collects a note, goes to the employee to modify. The employee actually modifies it this time. Submits again, it goes back to one. They can reject or approve. Let's say they approve it this time. This is our exit, and it goes to level 2. Okay, so once level 2 happens, level 2 can also reject. So if they don't like something that's filled out, let's say they reject, then they have to collect a note, tell the employee what they need to fix. Goes back to the employee to modify, goes back to level 1. Level 1 approves it, goes back to level 2. Level 2 is finally happy now, and then it ends with a notification to the employee that it has been completed. Messy, huh?
That's a bowl of spaghetti. Well, let me ask you this. Can the steps be auto approved?
Oh, yes. I don't prefer it for this particular scenario
Okay.
because the employee is filling out a lot of documents and a lot of information has to be correct for compliance reasons. So, you know, let's take, for example, a good place to use the auto approve would be a small department that the person is putting the information, hiring the person with the HR action, then they are approving the onboarding and they update all the payroll stuff. Okay, so in a new hire HR action, I would use the auto approve. And that way it gets into the system much quicker and they can go back and make changes as they need it. Now, there's a lot of sensitive data there. So it's also, just those small companies, it works really well with.
Awesome. That sounds great.
Now, an HR action requires a workflow and can be initiated as a standalone action or added to a checklist. The ability to initiate an HR action is only given at a security profile level, which gives the initiator temporary security to change an employee's record. The approver verifies, approves the changes that are valid, and the requirement is what is, and that requirement is what safeguards against errors. Now, the initiator is given temporary permissions to make changes to the employee record, which the initiator in this case is going to be the employee. So there's two kinds of HR actions. The employee information, where initiates create and update employee record. Like it would be initiates it would be like an HR manager to initiate a new hire, a rehire, or a termination. Supervisors can do job change, department change, or pay change, things like that. And the other kind is the My Information Review, which is initiated by the employee because they're going to update something about their information and can they can update their employee record. They can update their contacts or their direct deposit. It really empowers the employee to be able to manage how they get paid, and again with temporary permissions to make the change, and it gets verified and must be approved before the changes in the record.
Okay. Now, on the HR actions you've explained, now, is there an HR action that's required to make a change to their withholding?
No, actually,
Okay.
but it the employee can go right into their withholding information and make a change anytime they want, because it doesn't require approval. However, a notification can alert the person or group responsible for reviewing and verifying withholding forms. However, no change will be made until it's reviewed and verified.
Ooh, that's good to know that it has to be reviewed and verified. Good info.
So we're going to look inside My Information action and the HR action New Hire Information Review. This is the first item added to the onboarding checklist. And what it looks like is we start with the new hire information. We put in the name, and then we assign the HR action. You can see there that it's required with a little red star. And then we add a little bit of information, maybe some basic instructions, and then we click on add action, add the action items. So then we're going to start adding action items. Now, action items are different things that you want the employee to check and or to verify and or update. So I like to check all the ones off that I'm going to use. Now, the address, birthday, cell phone, you can see some of the ones available there. And once they can be, you can choose them all and add them all at the same time, or you can choose them one at a time if you want them in a specific order. I choose them all at the same time, and then I move them around where I want them to end up. So there's the most common items for employees to check and edit. Now they're going to check their name and their social security number, their birthday, address, cell phone, primary email, actual marital status, gender, full-time student, veteran, and citizenship. All of these help stay in compliance. And I have them enter their emergency contacts in the next section.
Okay. Well, Bonnie, you said that the HR action can stand alone and it can be used in a checklist at the same time. Can you help me understand this? Do you have an example?
Sure. The direct deposit change HR action we use in the onboarding checklist, and it's made available to existing employees when they want to update their direct deposit. They can also require adding a copy of a voided check or something printed from the bank that gives the routing number and the account number, and that can be verified before approving. And it is optional, but also can be required. I can make it required. There's a setting for that. Now, the workflow will send the request to the approvers to review and verify, and can reject if they see an error and send it back to the employee to fix. And when satisfied, correct, approval happens and will automatically update for the next payroll.
Okay, well, but how much time before the next payroll does the employee have to update the direct deposit?
They can do that on the same day. They just make sure that it's communicated and then it gets approved, verified and approved, because that's the beating heart. They have to get in there and make that change. And then their pay statement, if payroll has already been started, all they have to do is the payroll person will open up their pay statement and it will be recalculated and synced with payroll and it's updated.
That is super fast. But like you said, communication is key on that between the employee. That is awesome.
Yeah, and the takeaway from the the HR actions are initiated and have a workflow that can be used alone or in a checklist. So this is kind of starting on what it looks like to add a new checklist. You have to put in the name and you have to choose a category. I like to use hiring as the category. It's good to have a category for different reports, and then if you look at, there's several boxes there you can choose. One is active. Whenever I'm making changes to a checklist, I like to activate it while I'm making that change, just to make sure one isn't initiated or assigned while I'm making changes to it. Also, there's the option to mark it as complete when all the steps are complete. So the other option of leaving it unchecked would mean that the HR person would have to come in and manually end the checklist. And who wants to do that? I mean, let the system do the work for you. Why not? And the date can be entered as another option. I don't ever really use this option. I see maybe the value in it for some industries, but having different dates, the system automatically tracks that. So, and then the enforce the completion order on here. Yeah, again, something I don't usually use or recommend because, employee can get into the middle of their checklist and be stopped on a section because they didn't have a credential to upload.
Mhm.
They can continue on and do all of those policy acknowledgments and things and then come back and upload their credentials. And so I normally don't use that one or recommend it. And the final one is pre-boarding, which is used in the recruiting module. Now, on the other side is the setting widget, and it auto add a new employee to or existing employees. And the next thing to the side are the filters. So let's say an onboarding checklist for employees, you have an onboarding checklist for employees and for managers. I can go in and filter that the one for employees will only go to the security profile of someone who has the employee. And the other one that has probably a little bit more higher policies and things that they have to sign off on because they're managers, then I can make it automatically add to a new account that's created with the security profiles manager. Now, there can be one onboarding checklist for all employees, and this is basically the best practice. And I think Rhonda started this practice, but I'm one of her students, so I follow suit because it is a really good one. That we create one that every employee has to fill out. And then we create supplemental onboarding checklists, and they are filtered to be added to a specific criteria that the employee meets. And it will automatically assign it to that employee based on that criteria. It's pretty awesome.
Very cool.
Now, this is like the very first section of the onboarding checklist. So if you look at it in the picture, all of these sections are stacked on top of each other. And that's what they look like in the workflow. I'm taking it section by section. So let's look at the new hire review. This is an HR action that needs to be completed by the employee. So the next section is the government forms, and you put in the action, you choose government form, and then you choose which government forms you want them to fill out. You can put a few instructions here, but all the government forms have instructions with them, so that's not really necessary. Then you have your direct deposit HR action. And it is put in and is completed by the employee. You choose HR action, and then you choose which HR action you want to use. And then finally, it's the customizable part, and that is the policies and acknowledgments. And again, I'm using this from my demo company, so I don't have any set up. I didn't want to use any live accounts. And then the very last section or for this part is what I call the credential and documents, any last minute things that they need to upload and that need to be tracked. So also it's kind of a new feature that we've been offering, and that is putting in the ability to sign up for electronic consent for their W-2 and or their 1095 if that is something that's inside the system. So,
Okay, so can you give me an example what it looks like to the employee?
yeah. So when they log in and they go to their bell, they have their little notification in the bell. And then when they click on their My Checklist, it looks like that. And down at the bottom, I didn't get a picture of it, there is a Start Checklist button. So once they start the checklist, then it opens up like a side panel that is like a navigation pane. And then the other side is going to give them all the things that they need to fill out. And so, this is very basic, very, very basic, but new hire, employee review, the government forms, direct deposit, and the electronic consent are the only things I have on my checklist. So, but that's what it looks like for the employee. Now, the setup for onboarding takes planning and some work upfront. But once it's fine-tuned and implemented, it's an amazing tool and valued by our HR clients that are currently using it. So that's the end of my presentation. I just want to recap that the employee record, a digital personnel file, it's the beating heart. It moves the data around and is critical to all Scissortail modules, onboarding, first day paperwork, turned in digitally, saving time and resources. And I want to thank you all very much for attending today, and I look forward to next time.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Bonnie. Let me pull the presentation back up here. I know we have a couple of more slides. I know time's getting kind of close to the top of the hour. We do have a couple of questions in the Q&A we're going to get to here in just a moment. If you need to drop off, feel free to do so. It'll be at the end of the recording, and like I said at the top, we're going to make sure everybody who registered gets a copy of the recording. So the first question we have here, this will probably be for Bonnie. After the applicant is chosen, does all the information they put in during the application process automatically move to the new hire record, so it doesn't need to be entered twice?
Well, that's only if you have the recruiting module. if you have the recruiting module, then it's intertwined with Scissortail, and it does move over, but it creates a brand new employee record. There's an an applicant profile where they put it in themselves to apply for the job in recruiting. And then once they are hired with a new hire HR action, they have their employee profile and they'll log in a different way. But yes, that does work in the recruiting process.
Awesome. Last question here. If I have my sorry about that. If I have my employees sign their documents electronically, will the state and federal government accept that? Or do I also need to get a hard copy signed as well?
No, the state and federal governments do acknowledge that the electronic signatures are valid. So they do allow that.
Perfect. Well, it looks like that's all we have in the Q&A. Just to close out a few housekeeping things here. We are out and about. CS3 is going to be at Missouri Sherm and Osage Beach, August 6th through the 9th. Tulsa IMA, August 13th. If you're looking for a professional speaker, we have plenty on staff. Anybody that can discuss leadership, business development, human capital management, marketing is kind of my thing, So for more information or to schedule a speaker, just feel free to email me. That's Daleman, Daleman at cs3tech.com. And we're going to have some more presentations for you guys. Obviously, in the coming months, we'll have a focus on checks and bank reconciliation next month. August will be a review of Scissortail releases. So, yeah, make sure you watch your email. We'll promote all of these for weeks in advance. So just keep an eye out. You can register. For everybody on the serve access plans, the session has already been recording. You'll be able to find that in the library early next week. Like I said, we're sending a video deck to everybody who registered. Don't fret about that. If you're not on a serve access plan, feel free to contact Ira. His information is at the bottom of the screen there. And lastly, don't forget to complete the survey to request, don't forget to complete the survey to be entered in a chance to win that Yeti. Trust me, you guys want that Yeti. I can't stress enough how nice of a water bottle it is. So make sure you fill that out and we'll see who wins. Thanks, everybody. My first Smart Talks is in the books. I think it went really well. If you disagree, like I said, email me. Let me know where I messed up. We'll come back better next month. Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.